there is a guy that is getting hit, whose name is Luke Heisenberg, and he is adopted. And while being scared, he asks his father on why is he being angry, to which he angrily replies, and tells him to show his gift to him. And after hearing that, Luke thinks to himself that every human is born with a gift, and those gifts have ranks to it. And he goes on by taking out his smartphone, and he started to think, how could this smartphone can be helpful, what a waste gift. After that, he tells to his father that it's the first X-rank gift in the history. But the father didn't care about it, and he scolds Luke by saying that it's an useless skill. And then he started to bite his nails, while thinking that he heard about black-haired and black-eyes people always receives God-level skills, so which is why he adopted Luke from the orphanage. And he goes on by punching Luke while telling him to get out of this house. And all of the sudden he started to have a dream, where he was in his old world, working as an salaryman. And one day he got killed by Truckkuin. And so he got reincarnated to this world. But he was still living happily in the orphanage. But then his adopted dad forced him to come with him. And he used a mind control magic on Luke, so he doesn't remember anything. Even though he was named as a noble, he was treated like a slave. And today he got kicked out of the house. And while closing the door, the guard smilingly says that they lost their fun toy. And in the end they closed the door. After seeing it, Luke realizes that they threw him out, after realizing he got an useless skill. Afterwards, Luke was still happy, since he is finally free from those bullies. And then he realizes that all he has now is just some money plus an unknown mobile phone. And in the end he decides to search for a job. Afterwards he asked many shop owners for work, but they all rejected him. And after seeing that, Luke was angry, since they are rejecting him because of Heisenberg. And in the end he arrives at the Adventure Guild. And the receptionist asks him if he is here for a job or to register his name. To which he says that he is here to register, while thinking that his father couldn't able to reach all the way to the Adventure Guild. Afterwards he registered himself as an adventure. And after receiving it, and he looked at his stats, only to realize that he is weak. And he started to cry, since there is no way for him to get stronger. And all of the sudden everyone is surprised, since it is the girl who became the S rank at the youngest age. And after seeing her, Luke thinks to himself that he heard rumors about her while being at that mansion. And after seeing at her he was shocked, and all of the sudden he says her name, and in blink of an eye, she comes in front of him, and she says, "Did you call me?" And this made him to panic, and in the end he says sorry to her. And this made her to be confused, and she asks him on why he said sorry. And all of the sudden someone grabs Luke, and he started to say that a niece can be admired. But he can't interfere like this, since he can't even defeat a single goblin. And he goes on by telling Luke to train more. And after leaving, that guy tells to a niece that it's rare for her to get involved with a man. Afterwards, Luke was sitting near the fountain, thinking that everyone laughed at him today. And he realizes that he brought a bread with an iron coin. And because of that he is running low on money. And he goes on by thinking whether if he will be able to buy a house in the future. And suddenly Luke heard a loud noise. And everyone is being scared, since the Lord's private army is bullying a kid for bumping into them. And all of the sudden someone calls them. And to their surprise, it was their captain and vice captain. But then the captain started to say that he will forgive that kid after cutting off his fingers. And suddenly someone calls the captain by his name by telling him to stop. And to his surprise it was Luke. And with an angry face, he says that Luke is just a commoner. Compared to Luke, he is a leader of a private army. And after hearing that, Luke remembers the bullying they did to him. And he started to shake while thinking that the leader was the root to the bullying he received back in the mansion. But then Luke still rushes in by telling him to back off. And without any problem, he kicked Luke. And he started to say this is what happens when in small fry thinks he is big. Afterwards he started to say that Luke should apologize while being in his knees, only then he will forgive him. Afterwards Luke realizes that his bones got fractured. And he started to think it's really scary, so he wants to run away. And in the end he decides to not run and face it. And all of a sudden the vice captain takes the kid and says if he doesn't get on his knees, this kid will die. And she goes on by getting the blade closer to the boy's neck, and it even made a small scratch. And after seeing that Luke couldn't able to do anything, and he got on his knees and tells the leader to let go that child. And then they started to laugh at Luke, and all of a sudden he started to step on Luke's head. Afterwards he started to mock Luke by saying that this is what happens when a loser like him acts like an hero. And while getting hit, he was thinking that even after getting freed he still can't do anything. Afterwards the leader says as a consideration of Luke's sacrifice, he will now kill that kid so that kid doesn't need to suffer. And then he started to walk towards the kid, and all of a sudden, Luke gets up and stands in front of that child. But without a second thought, the captain goes in for the attack. And before it was about to hit him, Luke was panicking thinking that his body moved on his own. And he started to think that his legs are trembling so bad, and in the end he steals his resolve and decides to just stand in there. But then before it could hit Luke, Anice comes in and blocks the attack. And after seeing her, Luke was shocked. And she says even a lord's army can't kill a citizen if they didn't commit a crime. And if necessary she will report this incident to the royal capital. Which made him shocked. And in the end he decides to leave. And after seeing her, he started to think that he was pathetic and he couldn't able to do anything on his own. But then she suddenly comes close to him. And she flicks on his head while saying that he had gone too far. But still he was brave. And after hearing that, Luke started to blush. And all of a sudden, the other guy comes in and he started to praise Luke for his braveness. And then suddenly Anice says that he is different. And after saying that, she started to leave the place. And she throws him a potion saying that's all she have now. And after receiving it he realizes that it's an costly elixir. And then Luke suddenly calls her and says thanks to her for saving him. But she just leaves by showing her hands. Afterwards that guy asks to her on why she gave him that expensive elixir. To which she smilingly says it's okay. And then Luke was being surrounded by town people and they are praising him for his good work he did. Afterwards at the same night, he realizes that his wounds have been healed in just a small sip of that potion. And he goes on by thinking that Anice looked cool. And compared to that he got made fun of her, which was her saying he is different. And in the end he decides to become strong like that girl. Afterwards he realizes that he doesn't even know what his gift does. And he goes on by thinking that it's not the same smartphone he saw in his old memories. And he goes on by clicking the photo application. And he tried to take a photo of that potion. And after having it in the camera, he realizes that it's asking him to view details. And to his surprise it says on what that potion does. And he goes on by seeing an option saying copy. And he clicks at it. And to his surprise the potion doubled. And he looks around to see a couples talking to themselves. And after putting them in the camera, it says that he obtained their ability. And everything around him starts to glow. Afterwards he takes a stick. And he started to move really fast, since he just obtained the sword demon gift. And he was shocked, so which means he must have obtained the magic as well. And after saying that he started to concentrate. And he says fire, which made in fireball. And this shocked Luke. Afterwards the others in the streets started to shout at Luke, since he fired a magic in the middle of the town. And after running for a while, Luke was relieved, because his adopted father didn't knew its full ability. And while thinking about that, Luke started to hallucinate. And he falls in the ground, because he got muscle soreness and mana depletion. After that he started to drink that elixir. And after drinking it, he realizes with this gift he can actually get stronger than Anice and help the people in need. And at the next day morning he had in stomach pain, to which he drank the potion. Afterwards he tried using his gift, and he realizes that his smartphone can duplicate items and obtain the powers of the creatures he took photos of. Afterwards he realizes that even if he copies the gift, he still can't use them, because his body won't keep up with the magic. And in the end he realizes that he should level up before using his smartphone. Afterwards the receptionist tells him that the beginners cannot do a subjugation quest alone. After that she gave him a party appointment so he can join in the party and do the quest with them. Afterwards, to his surprise, every party rejected his application because of his background story, which made Luke fall in despair since they are still standing his way. In the end Luke decides to level up without doing the subjugation quests. And after a while he arrives at the forest. and all of the sudden a goblin appears. And after seeing that goblin, he hides behind a tree, but then he made a noise. And that goblin noticed him. And it came in to attack Luke. And after seeing it, he reminds himself that he shouldn't be afraid. After saying that, he attacks the goblin, which killed it in one shot. Afterwards, he takes its magic stone, and thinks to himself that he can sell this to make money. And after a while, Luke realizes that there is more goblins are here. And after seeing them, he decides to see what will happen if he take a picture of that goblin. And after taking it, he realizes that he can obtain skills from monsters too, which had a smell gift. Afterwards, they noticed Luke. And after seeing that, he ran away. And after running for a while, he thinks to himself that he can't defeat all of them at once. And suddenly he smelled something. And to his surprise, it was a slime. Afterwards, he realizes that he was able to find it because of his newly obtained skill from that goblin. Afterwards, in the end, he decides to defeat the slime. And then he goes on by using the fire magic on that slime. And after defeating the slime, he sits under the tree. And then he decides to see what was that slime skill, which was nullifying every physical attacks. And after seeing it, he was shocked, and then he decides to use that power, which made his hands slimy. After that, he tried cutting himself, which didn't hurt him at all. After seeing that, he started to smile while saying that humans using monsters' ability, he never heard of it. And he goes on by thinking that Anice is currently conquering a labyrinth where only high-ranked adventurers can enter. Afterwards, he decides to go into a labyrinth with Anice one day. Afterwards, he started to hunt many different types of monsters, day by day. And after a month later, Luke was now 75 level. And he thanks a golden slime, which gave him a skill that 10x's his experience. And then he goes on by thinking that while he was leveling up, his smartphone also had an update, which is now he can translate any type of language and also access the maps and search for anything in the Google. Afterwards, he decides to go to the Adventure Guild to sell the magic stones. And after going to the guild, he sells his magic stones. After that, he was worrying, since even though he can hunt this many monsters, he still can't rank up. And he goes on by thinking that Anice is all the way over to the S rank. And all of a sudden, Anice says that she heard what he said. And to his surprise, it was Anice. And he asks to her if she had returned from the labyrinth. But she just comes close to him, which made him to blush harder. And she starts to smile by saying that it's good to see his injuries are gone. But then Luke couldn't able to say any word. And after that, he realizes that he haven't talked with anyone for a month, so he can't really talk with her. And all of the sudden, her party members calls her. And she tells him bye and leaves. And while she was leaving, he suddenly calls her. And she looks at him confused. And he was shocked, since he doesn't know what to say. And was panicking, while thinking that he should say something. And all of a sudden, he says that he will become stronger, so she should go on a dungeon date with him. And after hearing that, she was about to say something. And the other guy comes in and says, that guy who became adventure is talking back. And all of a sudden, the guy felt a strong aura from Luke. And after seeing that with a shocked face, he asks Luke's rank. To which Luke smilingly says that he is still a novice. And after hearing that, he shouts, "Don't lie to me," to Luke. And he goes on by asking others to tell him on who is in charge of Luke, since he is clearly lying about his rank. And after hearing that, Luke tells to him that it's not anyone's fault, it's just he has a complicated background. And he goes on by saying that it's just he can't form a party. And because of that, he can't rank up. And after hearing that, he angrily looks at others, and they were standing there scared of him. Afterwards, he shouts at them saying they are abandoning the beginner just because they fear the higher-ups. Afterwards, that guy starts to smile, and he taps on Luke's shoulder by telling him to leave it to him. And after a while, he was telling Luke to come at him from anywhere. While he was standing there thinking, how did this even happen? And they are standing in the training hall. And that guy started to say, it's a mock battle, and also everyone doesn't know Luke's real powers. And so if they see his true potential, they will know who Luke really is. And after saying that, he asks Luke to attack first. And after hearing that, Luke started to use a slime magic. But he blocks it with ease. And he got disappointed, thinking if he was just a mage. But to his surprise, Luke was vanished. and he was standing behind that guy. And he uses another skill, and gets so close to him. But he noticed Luke. And he parries Luke's attack, which made him to fall in the ground. Afterwards Luke was lost. After that Luke was upset, since he is so weak. And the audience were silently watching. And they started to shout happily while coming into the ring. And then they started to praise Luke, since he was able to get back into an S-rank adventure. And then he says Luke has good skills, he still can't use them to its fullest. And after hearing that, Luke invites others to do a mock battle with him. And everyone accepts the invite. And then he started to fight with everyone. And also he took many people's abilities by taking a photo. Afterwards he was sitting on the table, thinking that he acquired many skills and gifts. And he goes on by thinking that copying others is making him feel like a coward. And all of the sudden the S-rank adventure comes in. And after seeing him, Luke says if it's really okay for him to be this happy, since it's not like it's his real power. And after hearing that, he started to shout by saying that there must be an important secret for his sudden growth. But he doesn't care about that. And he goes on by asking Luke if he is going to use his power for bad things, to which he rejects it right away, and after hearing it he pats on his head. And says then there is nothing to worry. Afterwards Luke calls him. And he says thanks to him for his help. To which he started to say that he is not that kind. Since it's because of Anise. Which confused Luke. And he goes on by saying that he is doing all of this because Anise asked him to do it. And that was her first request she asked him. So he can't really reject that. And he goes on by saying that what she is finding good about this guy. Which made Luke to blush. And all of a sudden someone throws a mug at him. And to his surprise it was Anise, and she was standing there angrily. And after seeing her he got up on the window, and he says bye to Luke and jumps. Which made Luke shocked, since they were on the second floor. And suddenly Anise calls him, which made Luke get shocked. Afterwards she sits next to him while asking him if he said anything weird about her. Afterwards that guy ran all the way and he was standing near the stairs and looking at them. Afterwards while Luke was saying something she looked at him angrily, and after seeing that he started to run away. While Luke is asking her on why did she go that much of length for him. To which she started to say that he tried to protect a kid that he barely knows, to her opponent he can't defeat. And after hearing that he says it looks like he showed her his uncool side, since at that time he was shaking all over his body. But then she goes on by saying that the people who risk their lives for others are rare. And she goes on by saying that she just couldn't able to stand and see someone like him die. And then she tells him it's okay to lose. But it's important to not give up. And in the end she tells to him that she will be waiting for him. And while she was leaving he calls her, to which she tells him to call her by her first name. And after hearing that he started process the information, and after realizing what she just said he started to blush. And he got a huge burst of motivation to do more. And as the time goes on he trained more and more, and he even took a selfie with Anise. And he just won a mock battle, where his opponent gives up. Afterwards everyone decides to go for a lunch. After a while in the Adventures Guild cafeteria. And everyone is praising Luke, and a guy says that Luke's goal is to go on a date with Anise. Which that captain heard it. And he realizes that they were praising Luke. Afterwards he calls an waiter, and he asks to her isn't he being ignored by everyone, that F-rank guy. To which she shakingly says as exchange for ranking up. He decides do mock battles to get stronger, and after hearing it he got angry, since he is doing great than he thought. And he comes in and calls Luke, and he goes on by telling Luke to come outside. And after seeing him everyone went silent. And he goes on by saying that he will take on Luke for a mock battle. And he goes on by saying that the captain of the Lord's private army is inviting him in person, so he can't reject it. And after hearing it he was sitting there silently, and all of a sudden someone says that they will be the judge, and to his surprise it was that S-rank adventure. But after seeing him, that captain still didn't care. Afterwards he tells to Luke that he should accept it, since if he refuses it, this will cause him more trouble. And in the end Luke accepts the battle. Afterwards they came into the ring, and he started to say that he will hold back, while Luke was looking at his stats, and his level is 131. And after seeing it he realizes that he is only 80 level, so which means, this guy might be stronger than S-rank adventure. and he goes on by thinking that there is no way but to accept it. Afterwards the fight starts, and Luke rushes to him, which he blocked it, but then he used the same move he did back then and gets behind him. And after seeing that move, Bardon realizes that he used the same move from back then. Afterwards Luke comes in front of him and slashes his head, which gave him a scratch. Afterwards he got angry, and he goes on by giving an elbow shot to Luke, which broke his sword. Afterwards he started to say that Luke is an losing dog because he is good at running away. Afterwards he goes on by going for a finishing blow, while saying let's end it right here. And before it could hit Luke, Bardon comes in and blocks the attack. And after seeing him, he asks to Bradon on what is he trying to pull. To which he started to say that there is no way a captain of the private army will get serious over a beginner. And after hearing that, he started to leave while saying that everyone is so weak. Afterwards Luke was crying, since he was once again got protected by others. And all of the sudden Anise comes in and says good work to him. To which he started to say that he couldn't able to win, even though they worked so hard. And after hearing it she taps on his head. And she smilingly says that he is getting stronger no matter how much he loses, which made him to blush. Afterwards everyone comes in and says it looks like he is in a good streak on growth. And after that he says thank you to everyone. And he started to shout saying that it's time for him to grow more stronger. And he started to run away saying that he is off to get more stronger. After seeing him, Bardon says something, and Anise just tells him good luck. Afterwards Luke was grinding for a long time, and another month has passed, and he was happily shouting that he reached to level 100. Afterwards he realizes that there is a new application in the smartphone named photosynthesis. After that he decided to use it to the sword. And to his surprise he used his fire magic on his sword. And he was shocked, but then his sword breaks. And he goes on by thinking that the durability of iron sword cannot withstand magic. And he goes on by thinking that he should buy new equipment. After a while, he comes into the weapon shop. And he used all of his savings and brought an iron sword with high-level magic affinity. And after seeing the money he had, the shopkeeper was shocked, since he was just a beginner. Afterwards he goes on by using his skill, and infuses it with magic. And then before leaving he saw a quest to kill a big bee. Afterwards he comes into the forest, and he found that bee monster, where even the S-rank adventure will have hard time defeating it. And with a conceal magic he gained by a monster, he was able to come close to that bee. Until today all he did was run away from that monster. Afterwards he uses a wind magic to jump higher, and he decides to defeat it in a surprise attack. Afterwards he gets near it, and uses her attack, which only cut of its leg. And after seeing that he realizes that he can do it. Afterwards that bee comes in to attack him, which he evades. And he goes on by jumping high. And he gets ready to attack it, and then he used a S-rank gift, which made a huge explosion. Afterwards Luke realizes that he defeated that monster. And he takes its magic stone. And he was happy, since with this photosynthesis skill he can easily defeat high-rank monster. Afterwards at the Adventure Guild, some girls were wondering if he was the candidate for the party member. While Luke was sitting there, thinking he hope it's not like hookup culture, since he doesn't know on what type of situation he is in right now.